I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by using Zoom video communications. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. And per tradition, we will start with a roll call. I am Brian Barabee.
I am Bill Payne.
Jillian Glasanos.
And Rebecca Longball. A few housekeeping rules. Please remain on mute until you have been called upon by our chair or a board member of the Conservation Commission. Please utilize the raise hand or chat function to address the board and get their attention when that public comment period does open. You can also physically wave if you have your camera on, but just know it will take me a moment longer to see you and address you to the board. Then lastly, could you please, if you have not done so already, change your display name to your legal first and last name for record keeping purposes. Thank you.
All right. First up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider of a notice of intent filed by the DCAMM for their property off of Furbush Mill Road. Rebecca, do we have someone here representing the Department of DCAMM?
Yes, we do have quite a few of their team and then their supporting staff. So I just unmuted Kim because she had sent me the presentation. I'm not sure if she's the one giving the presentation. So please direct us. And if you would like to share your screen for the presentation, I will stop sharing mine. And hopefully this transfers smoothly.
Certainly. This is Chad Cox with GZA, and I'll be starting out our short presentation, and I am going to share my screen. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So again, I'm Chad Cox with GZA, and I'll be starting out our short presentation on the swimming pool dam interim auxiliary spillway and stream crossing repair project. This project is being put forth by the proponent and primary property owner, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as represented by the Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, DCAM. There are 3 representatives of DCAM on the line tonight, and DCAM is represented by its consultants, GZA Geoenvironmental, that's me, Chad Cox, a civil engineer, and my colleague Kim DeGutis, a wetland scientist, who will be also speaking tonight. Just shortly to orient ourselves, our project site is just south of Furbush Mill Road. Here it's kind of a long linear site with the swimming pool pond at the south end of the site and water flowing south to north towards Furbush Mill Road. This is our project area and our existing conditions plan. You can see it's kind of a long linear site. So we've got the north end of the site here on the left, Furbush Mill Road here. And the primary features of the site are this unimproved access road that heads south, and then this unnamed tributary that runs roughly parallel to the road, except for here where it crosses under the road through a culvert, which is actually on town-owned land. Then up here at the south end of the site is the pond itself, swimming pool pond, with a small embankment dam here. And the red area is where much of our project work is going to be occurring. So project, the purpose of our project is to stabilize the unsafe condition at the swimming pool dam and to improve the access road. And we're doing this to protect both safety and the resource areas. And we're doing this in advance of a future decommissioning of the dam. So this is an interim project. DCAM's ultimate goal is to decommission this dam, to remove it as a public safety hazard and to do an ecological restoration project. But this project is intended to stabilize the site in advance of that. So the primary project features for this interim project are modifications to the existing spillway and its associated culvert. We're going to create a new auxiliary spillway channel on the upland area of the left abutment of the dam, looking downstream. We're going to upsize the culvert conduit that's associated with that spillway channel. And we're also going to replace the downstream culvert where the brook crosses under the road with a new structure that's substantially larger than the existing one and is compliant with the Mass stream crossing guidelines. We'll repair the road and we'll also remove some of the sediment that was previously mobilized when the dam got close to overtopping. So here is the final conditions plan at area 1, which is up at the dam. And here the plan is to create this auxiliary spillway channel. The existing spillway will be left in place. It will remain the primary mechanism for water to get out of the pond through a little head wall here and into this open channel. But we're going to create this auxiliary spillway in case the primary spillway is again clogged or we need extra capacity. Then the water passes down through this final spillway conduit here, which is also damaged and undersized. We're going to replace that as well with an upsized culvert pipe. This is a profile and section through the proposed auxiliary spillway channel. It's a trapezoidal spillway channel, very simple, 8-foot wide bottom width, and we will line it with both poly sheeting and a protective overlay of filter fabric. This is a photo standing at the left abutment of the dam looking downstream. Here's the pond on the right, and this shows the general alignment of the auxiliary spillway channel that we're proposing to put in that will go roughly parallel to the direction that the water already discharges through the existing spillway channel. Down at the bottom of the hill, we're going to replace the culvert that goes under the road. We're going to replace that culvert, which is currently 15 inches in diameter and horribly clogged, with a substantially upsized culvert. This will be a 8-foot wide by 4-foot deep concrete box culvert. And we're doing this, this size of a culvert in order to comply with the Massachusetts stream crossing guidelines. We'll fill the bottom 2 feet of the culvert with a natural stream bed material to facilitate aquatic wildlife. That's just a photo of some of the debris that was removed by DCAM after the spillway was clogged up. That created problems with the pond getting much too high, tremendous seepage. And so in consultation with the Office of Dam Safety, we came up with this concept of creating a auxiliary spillway channel. Obviously, the Concom wants us to protect the resource areas, and DCAM ultimately, again, would like to breach this dam. Just a quick screenshot, DCR has, in their Office of Dam Safety has endorsed and just today issued a permit for the proposed project. So now I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Kim, to talk about resources.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kim DeGudis. I'm the wetlands scientist on this project. Most of the images that you're going to see on these slides were contained in the NOI packet. We're going to scroll through them pretty quickly to give you plenty of time at the end to ask for questions. This here is showing the resource areas that were defined during the field delineation back in May and June of this year. The image on the left is the area 2, that is the culvert replacement near the bottom of the hill. That area has got BVW, bank, and land under waters. And on the right-hand side, as you can see, that's the pond, that's the spillway conduit, and that's going to be that crossing replacement that also has bank and land under waters. Next slide, please. So again, site conditions, just some recent photos. The photo on the left, we're both at area 1 for both of these photos. Photo on the left is looking upstream at the crossing, and the photo on the right is at the crossing looking downstream. You can see a little bit of erosion across that road from prior overtopping incidents. And again, in these areas, you've got bank, land underwaters, and bordering vegetated wetlands. Next slide, please. This is area 2. Again, both photos. The photo on the left is facing upstream. The photo on the right is facing downstream. And in these areas, you've got bank, you've got BBW, and land underwaters. Next slide, please. These are just some simple shots of our.
Can you go a little
ahead.
slower because the pictures aren't keeping up with your speaking?
Okay. Very good. This is the erosion control and stream bypass. Again, this image is available in the NOI. We're just highlighting certain sections of the plan sheets that you got. For both areas, we're going to isolate the work area with either an aqua dam or some other isolating type system. We're going to install a stream bypass system, allowing the natural flow of the unnamed tributary to pass around that area. We're going to isolate the work area further using compost filter tubes inside the limits of work. This is the work area at the dam. This slide here is area 2, the work area surrounding the culvert replacement project. And again, it's going to be work isolation, stream bypass, and using compost filter tubes as part of the erosion and sediment control best management practices. Next slide, please. This is our proposed resource area impacts. The yellow lines that you see are anticipated impacts to bank. For this application, we took a conservative estimate of the total linear footage of bank impacts. Restoration for bank impacts will be the installation of core logs and installation using a native seed mix. This is, again, at the dam. You can see the interim auxiliary spillway and the spillway conduit that's proposed to be replaced. Next slide, please. This is area 2. This is the full culvert replacement where we're taking the smaller pipe, replacing it with a large box. On the upstream and downstream ends, there's going to be a little bit of riprap to armor the bank. And again, we did overestimate the areas of impact to bank and land underwater in this area. A thing to note, for this entire project, there's 10 square feet of BBW permanent impact. So we did make a request under 310 CMR 1055-4C, that's under BBW. That's the de minimis exemption, permanent impacts under 500 square feet. We can make the request of the Concoms to not provide replication for such small areas. Next slide, please. And again, this is our restoration plan. The yellow hatched lines are areas of proposed temporary impact. This is where workers would be walking and that sort of thing. There's lots of temporary impact inside the limit of work. And again, this is the conservative estimate. We just said everywhere inside the limit of work, which is the red dashed line, we're going to consider it to be temporarily impacted, whether it is or not, just to be conservative. Restoration measures will be use of loam and a native seed mix. And the purple hatching is BBW. Those are also areas of temporary impact, and the same thing, using a native wetland seed mix, raking it in areas of where workers have walked. Next slide, please. As part of the restoration, DCAM is committed to removing non-native material that has been deposited in adjacent resource areas due to prior flood events. This area specifically is at area 2, that's the one down the hill, the culvert replacement. The photo on the right shows a yellow polygon around an area. It's the approximate limit of what we assess to be where that material from the gravel road has been deposited. That's the downstream area, outfall area of that culvert crossing. And on the left-hand side is installation of an erosion control BMP that is compost filter tube adjacent to the access road to limit that sort of impact for the time being until construction starts. Next slide, please. This area is, you're not going to see it on the NOI plans because it is in between area 1 and area 2. But if you walk uphill approximately 400 feet from the culvert crossing, there's a silt fence on the left-hand side of the road. So the photo on the right, again, with the yellow polygon, shows the area of approximate deposition of non-native material. This will be removed, as in with the area 2 removal, using manual methods, typically that's shovel in a bucket under the direction of the wetland scientist, and the area will be restored using native seed mix. On the left-hand side, again, DCAM has installed some compost filter tube on the uphill upstream side of that silt fence to provide additional protection. Next slide, please. And here, this is area 1. This is the conduit spillway crossing. On the right-hand side, we saw this photo before. We can see that where there's some areas of erosion across the road due to overtopping events. And on the left-hand side, you can see where DCAM has installed some compost filter tube to limit that overtopping and keeping the water inside the stream channel and inside the pipe until the conduit spillway can be replaced. Next slide, please. Again, this is just a summation of the areas of impacts. These are, again, in the NOI plans. We just want to re-emphasize that the impact thresholds, especially for bank, have been overestimated just for this project. Next slide, please. Chad.
And this slide simply summarizes what we view as the benefits of the project. We think this project's going to protect public health and safety and protect the resource areas, and we'd be happy to take your questions now about the project.
Sorry, thank you for that summary. Any members of the commission have questions, initial questions?
Yeah, Brian, my question is, does the dam ultimately have to be removed, or is there some way we can control flow and keep the water level low enough so it's not a safety issue any longer? I mean, is the only option going forward removing the dam?
So, Brian, if I may.
Please, yes.
So the DCAM is presenting it this evening to just let the commission know that that's what they hope to do in the future. They will have to file another notice of intent, and at that time, the commission can certainly ask questions relative to the permanent solutions and have that conversation of, is this ultimately what needs to be done, and maybe have that open discussion of some other opportunities. But at this time, it's solely based on the auxiliary spillway and then the crossing, the resource area mitigation or cleanup, and the conduit being installed as well. But Bill, they will be filing another notice of intent, and that's certainly a conversation that can be had at that time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other initial questions? All right. If I remember correctly, there was some work already done in here when a bit of a berm gave away. And I'm just curious. I'm not sure if we ever heard with that work was that a regrading of existing soil or things that were already in place, or was there any fill brought in? Was anything brought into the site?
To the best of my knowledge, no fill was brought in. DCAM has done some work to try to stabilize the site and direct, runoff and erosion out of the gullies that form. And certainly they've been working hard to keep the existing spillway clear of debris, which, generally looks to be beaver generated from upstream. So that's been really the biggest challenge here, is just to keep the spillway flowing.
Chad, I think what the chair is also referring to is the access road, and asking about if that was just regraded over the erosion, or if in fact material had been brought in, and if so, how much material was brought in.
So to the best of my knowledge, no material was brought in to do any substantial regrading. If someone from DCAM has different information, please correct me. But as far as I know, the gullies were graded out. Susan Rook from DCAM has some information on that.
Susan,
Right.
please. Yeah.
And no material was brought in. I can confirm that. There was some regrading done, but part of this project also would be to regrade the road as the work is being finished to leave it in good shape so that there won't be sediment from the road that would enter the resource area after the project's complete.
Rebecca, do you have any additional questions?
I actually had followed up with Kim with a few clarification questions, so I appreciate that when I was reviewing the plan, so I appreciate her directing me on the plans where things were stated. So that was really one of the two outstanding questions I had. The other was related to, I noticed in the application that there was a very distinct, explicit statement about the culvert that went under Four Bush Mill Road as not being part of this project. And I was curious if you had reached out to the DPW director, because, and my concern of bringing that up is not necessarily to say whether or not it's someone's responsibility or whose responsibility it is to do that, because it's within the town right of way. But my concern would be, as we're making these much needed upgrades upstream, or proposing them rather before the commission, that culvert is undersized. So knowing that we're increasing flow to that culvert, it's undersized. It's something DPW is working on long-term, trying to figure out the long-term solution with funding and resources limited, just like at the state level. Were there any considerations or any assessments done to ensure that the upgrading improvements will not cause a failure? And that's really my concern is, again, upgrading it to a box culvert along the access road, I think is necessary. I think same thing, replacing the conduit. I think the spillway, I see why that's being proposed. It certainly needs improvement. The wetland resource areas need to be addressed and mitigated as far as cleaning up what was deposited there, reducing erosion along the access road. But now how is that going to impact that immediate culvert on the inlet side, I guess is my question.
So if I may address that,
Please. Yeah.
I did in fact speak with the DPW director about exactly pointing out to him that the town should understand the project and understand what we're doing. I believe he fully understood that. And as you may all have noticed, the town has signed as a co-applicant for this project because some of the improvements we're making, the box culvert in particular, are actually on town-owned land. So I can't speak for the DPW director, but we did speak about this issue and the DPW taking a look at that culvert under the road. So that's really all I can relay. But currently, if this project were not approved, the potential exists for in the right storm conditions because of the unsafe condition of the dam, if a hurricane or some significant event happened that caused a similar event to last spring, that significant sediment could come down the stream and impact the sediment, impact the culvert. By improving the ability of the stream to actually carry the water, I think that the potential for hazard to the culvert at the road is reduced. Chad is really the engineer, so I probably should not try to overstate that, but it is certainly on the DPW director's, it was brought to his attention.
Right, so I guess my question was it brought to his attention because that's something both I'm very aware of since I started in Bolton, and same thing with our new DPW director. Since he started, he's been aware of the issues along the roadway there. My question was it taken into consideration the impacts downstream? It seems like you're relaying that to an extent that they have been taken into consideration, and I'll follow up with the DPW director as far as that conversation that took place. But just that's something long-term that we're looking at, and already, yes, you're absolutely right, we've seen impacts from, but that was just my concern is we're you're proposing these great improvements upstream that will benefit the resource areas, but then at the roadway, which is one of the major cut throughs, how is that going to impact the roadway and that undersized culvert at this time during the interim of DPW in the town trying to figure out how to upgrade that? So that's really where my question was, not whether or not the DPW was aware of it. But
Oh,
thank you.
I'm sorry about that.
That's
I
okay.
misheard you. I thought you asked if we had conferred with them. So I believe that we, in looking at putting this proposal together, that we looked at all of the required criteria, and we have put on notice the town that owns that culvert under Forbush Mill Road. Chad, I don't know if you had anything to add or not.
With respect to flow coming out of the dam, we have not completed a detailed hydrologic assessment, but the limited size of the pond is such that it creates relatively little, if any, flood attenuation in terms of its ability to store water up there at the top of the hill. So, and certainly if the dam were to fail, in addition to sediment release, we'd also have, what would be a reasonably sizable dam breach flood wave come down the hill. So I think, from our perspective as engineers and DCAM's perspective, this interim project is protective of that culvert downstream in that it is going to reduce the potential for a potential dam failure, and that we don't see it as creating a huge potential for additional flow going into that culvert on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you. That's much more clear.
Rebecca, anybody from the public here tonight that has a comment or question regarding this project?
I will look now. Again, please use the raise hand function, the chat function, or physically wave, and I will try to locate you. I see no one for this project.
Okay. Just to other commission members, are there any additional questions or any additional conditions that you would like to see added to this notice of intent or changed within this notice of intent? All right, hearing none. I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for Forbush Mill Road, map 5.A-17. Do I hear a second for closing?
A second.
All right, all those in favor of closing, starting with William Payne,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Wonderful. Brian, I would ask that we take a little bit of time to draft the order of conditions, because I do not have that for this evening. But just a note before you make another motion.
It's perfectly fine. Do
Okay.
we need to make another motion this evening now that we've closed it? Would it be possible to let you draft and we can just vote to approve, hopefully next meeting? Would that make more sense?
We would
So,
request that
Susan,
you
go ahead.
vote to approve, certainly subject to the order of conditions being drafted and accepted. Isn't that the more typical way of doing it?
I would not say so. Typically, we make a motion and approve as the conditions are drafted, or if it's something that doesn't require more extensive conditions. And then at the next meeting, so it's closed, so the commission can't consider any new information, we draft it. And then at the next meeting, the commission's able to read off the specific conditions for the site that extend a little bit beyond our typical boilerplate conditions. And then they vote to issue. So it's all part of the minutes and all part of the record. The commission does have the ability to approve it now, but the issue is we don't have those conditions specific to this project drafted. So it would only be the boilerplate. But that's at the discretion of the commission to carry it that way. Again, the commission has already closed the public hearing. So it would just simply be a vote at the next meeting on October 19th, or the commission does have the ability to issue something this evening if they so choose.
Yes, we have passed things conditionally in the past. We're trying to really get away from that whenever possible. Is there any specific reason why you would need it to be approved quicker? That
Well, I think in part, different commissions do things differently, and in
Yes.
other commissions, we have received approvals for projects, subject to then the order being issued with all of the conditions. So in part, it was expectation of my higher ups that we'll be maybe hearing tonight, but understanding we wouldn't receive written conditions tonight. So we would respectfully request, if you're comfortable, to take the vote on it, but that is up to the commission, of course.
other commission members have thoughts on this?
No, I have no input, Brian.
Okay. It just, and you know, and I do appreciate wanting to close it out tonight. But this is kind of a larger project that we've had recently. I appreciate all the information you guys sent. It was all sorts of fun trying to read through and understand that this week. But in this specific case, especially with the size of the project and all the information we were given, I think I would appreciate waiting the 2 weeks to actually get everything written out the way we would like to see it before doing the final vote on it. And I do apologize, and I apologize to your higher ups, but I think in this specific case, it's probably best for our town to do it in that manner. But go ahead, please, go ahead.
We respectfully understand that and appreciate your consideration of that request. We do want to get this work, once we get written conditions, into the field as soon as possible to get the work done before true winter sets in. So we would appreciate anything that could be done to expedite the sharing of a draft, so that if there are any things that the agent wants to discuss with our wetland scientist or us, that when it comes to the next meeting, that it potentially could be approved that night.
I think I know for my purse, I'd be amenable to that. Rebecca, is that something you're able to do, to be able to share? And
Yep. Yeah, I'm amenable to that. I will certainly do just that. Additionally, when and if, because it sounds like the commission doesn't have any significant concerns other than just ensuring we have everything documented and conditioned properly at the next meeting, if they issue it, then I would suggest that you reach out to DEP Central Region directly and ask them if they have any particular interest in this property, so that you could gather that information regarding that appeal period, which is typically a waiting period.
Thank you for that advice. That's a great
Yep.
idea.
all right, so it doesn't look like we'll be voting on this tonight, but I thank you for your time and for all the information. Like I said, it's an in-depth proposal. It was interesting reading through.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good night. All right. Rebecca, are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay, then the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for Two Wheeler Road, map 2.C, parcel 17, a request for tree removal. Rebecca, is the applicant or somebody representing the applicant here tonight?
Yes, I believe Kyle is here.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
Would you like to provide a brief summary of your proposed project, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I've lived here in Bolton since 1996 at Two Wheeler Road. And we want to put solar panels on our house for fairly obvious reasons: climate change, electric bills, etc. As you can see, my house here is actually adjoining two wetlands. So there's one to the south side of the house, which is in the left side of this diagram. And there's a roadway there. It's a driveway. It's a shared driveway that is between my house and that wetland. And that shared driveway is on an easement through my property, and it goes back to, I think it's 3 houses that's it there, that were put in when this whole lot was kind of redeveloped in 1996 before I bought it. Yeah, so basically, if you look at the building there, you can see the addition that was put on 15 years ago on the left side of the building, and that's the southern side of the house, and that's where we want to put panels, but also on other parts of the house. And between the house and the wetlands there, yeah, there's 3 pine trees, about 7 small trees, and there's a mulberry tree, which is right next to that separate little building there. And the mulberry tree has 1 big branch. And these shade the roof. I've been dealing with several potential solar folks to install, including the likely winner is Sunrun, a large corporation. I even got a letter from them in the last week. I'll be buying the panels, not a case in which he states clearly that this has been reviewed and this is shaded, and removing the trees would greatly increase the electrical generation capacity. So I would love to move on this, and I'm not really sure, if you need anything else from me or what the process is, but if you have any questions.
Sure. Well, I don't have any initial questions. I'm going to open up to the other commission members. Do you guys have any initial questions?
No, Brian, I have no initial questions either. I can see what he's trying to do.
Yeah. Rebecca, did Emily have any comments on this? I know one of our commission members who wasn't going to be here tonight had submitted some comments on some of the projects.
For this particular project, our other commission member had inquired about performing a site visit. And then on the plan, she had some difficulty seeing where the 100-foot buffer is. That's why I'm just trying to annotate it lightly here. But she was requesting a site visit just so she could understand what this area is. And although there is a driveway through it, we'd like to understand a little bit better how this is impacting the home.
I can say that I believe that the 100-foot buffer actually goes like in a sort of semicircular thing right up to the house.
Okay.
So the whole backyard there is within the 100-foot. And then between the road and the house, so where those trees are, there's sort of an embankment that goes up to a flat backyard. You can kind of see the topo lines there on the map.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That's, again, those weren't I was also curious about that regarding the topography, but I could see the topography lines there. That was one of our other commission members' questions who couldn't be here this evening.
And to Mr. Nietzsche, I would tend to feel the same way as far as going out for a site visit. It's kind of standard in what we'll do, just to come out and take a look. I know where the property is, but I'm not familiar enough with the yard as it stands. But so if you're amenable, we would continue this to the next meeting, and then in between then and now and then, actually schedule a time to come out and just take a look and see what's going on there, so that hopefully we can.
That sounds perfect. I work from home, so I'm quite
excellent.
Yeah, I have good schedule availability. I'd be happy to have a site visit.
All right. Rebecca, are there any members of the public here tonight that have questions on this particular project?
I am looking. Again, you can use the raise hand function, the chat function, or physically wave your hand. I am seeing no one.
Okay. So once again, any commission members have any initial questions or anything else they'd like to hear before we have a chance to go out on site? And that, oh, and Rebecca, what's our first opening at our next meeting?
I would say 7:15, but 7:30 so that we can address the vote for the order of conditions. So I would say 7:30,
Gotcha. And that's the 19th?
correct.
Okay. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 2 Wheeler Road until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 19th, 2021 at 7:30 PM. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an I myself on that.
Wonderful, thank you. Kyle, I will coordinate with the commission members individually. Once we find a mutual agreeable time, I will then ask you if those dates and times work for you. Okay,
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
great, thank you.
All right. All right. Assuming Rebecca, you're good with me continuing?
Yes,
Okay, so the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to discuss the request for determination of applicability for 257 Main Street, map 4.E, parcel 48.
Thank you, Mr.
Um,
Chair. I am here, Greg Roy is here, Dillson Roy for the representing the applicant this evening. I appreciate it. And I think the applicants are on as well. So I'll just give you a quick overview of where we've been in the last couple of weeks and then turn it back over to you if there's any last remaining questions. So 2 weeks ago, we introduced the project again. The project is really to take down a few trees in the backyard for the purposes of creating a little bit more usable space in the backyard for the homeowners. I promised the commission that we would provide you a revised plan that showed a little bit more detail relative to the proposed grading. I think I indicated at the last meeting that they're proposing really to just kind of smooth off and grade the backyard area. So I did submit that plan to you late last week. And I'll summarize that in a second. I know that at least a few of you were on site. I think last Thursday. I wanted to take a minute to apologize to you and the applicant that I didn't have that meeting on my radar screen and and I could not make it by the time I found out that you were on site there. So I apologize that I was not present, but I trust that that was a fruitful exercise for the members that made it. So really, we did 4 things, and we submitted a cover letter along with the revised plan, but we added a detail that indicated what we're proposing to do with the existing swale along the property. We're going to really just kind of dress that up, as I indicated a couple weeks ago, with some crushed stone, which I think will improve the swale from an aesthetic standpoint, but also maintain its ability to convey flows and also mitigate any potential for erosion or soil loss in that area. We added the proposed grading to the plan on the backyard area. We added, what else do we add? We added the limit of work on the plan, just to really specify where we're going to be, where we're proposing to be grading. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And we also added some additional specifications just so the commission understands exactly what we're proposing for restoration in the area where we're proposing to grade. For those of you that went to the site, I guess the other thing we did was just kind of expand the viewpoint. We added a little bit more topography to the plan as well, so that you could kind of see the bigger picture of how the wetland interplays with the backyard area, as well as areas to the south of the property. There's a ridge that exists mainly outside of the buffer zone, just behind the deck of the existing house. And really, the applicant is looking, in addition to grading the lawn area between the house and the wetland system, they're also looking to take that ridge down. So we've shown the grading in that area, but most of that is outside of your jurisdictional area. We just want it to be more complete and exhaustive with the plan, so. But you can see as you go downhill, we've included the solid line there that's curved that says 93 and then 92 and then 91. Those are the proposed contours. They pretty much match existing grade. They're just going to smooth things off. And we're just going to kind of, there's some pits and mounds, so to speak, in the backyard. And so really the intent is just kind of to smooth that off and make it a little bit more usable for the owners. And so that's really all. I guess I just wanted to land that, like I said in the initial meeting, this is a really unique site in that any of this work really has no potential to impact the wetland resource area because it's downgraded in the wetland resource area. So while we've shown limited work and we've shown erosion control barrier, the erosion control barrier is really just somewhat ceremonial in that there's really no potential to impact the wetland area with the work we're proposing because it is indeed upgradient. But we do that erosion control barriers not only for the control of erosion, but also just to really permanently demarcate the critical areas where you're closest to the wetlands from a limited work standpoint. So that will be a hard and fast barrier in those locations. So I think that's it. I'm happy to take any questions that the commission may have.
Right. Any commission members have initial questions? Okay. I will ask. So, in order to smooth out and kind of regrade that back lawn, is there fill coming in, or are you looking to like take down that berm behind the deck and use that to?
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Did,
So just
and I couldn't.
balance cut and fills basically. Yeah.
So no fill coming into the site. It's just all existing.
That's the
right.
intent. Correct. Yep. And again, the major portion of that is outside of your jurisdiction. I just thought it'd be
Yeah.
not to show you.
No, it's fine. I wasn't sure on site if there's almost a pit on the other side of that berm.
Yeah. So
And I
they
just
yeah. Fill that in slightly. We did check that, by the way, for wetlands. There's no hydrosoil there. It looks to be like an old borrow pit, I think.
Yep.
So there was not vegetation or hydric soil present there. So, but yes, they would fill that, not a ton really, but we'd sort of just smooth that ridge off, and some of that area in the back would be filled in and then just graded to blend in with the rest of the yard.
I was asking more just because I was wondering if there was more increased chance of flooding. If you like, that berm was probably there for a reason. I'm sure it's because they saw a lot of this flooding coming, but it seems like everything's exiting off more the north. I want to say northern top of my screen side of the property than it would be the bottom of my screen. Yeah,
Well,
everything seems to flow off that way more so, but it looks like they had put that berm there for a reason.
I think it's natural. I think it's
You could throw, but yeah.
I think it's naturally occurring. And we've done, one of the other reasons to put the grades on the plan is to indicate how we want it done and to maintain hydrology. So you'll see that we put a high point in there, a saddle point, if you will. So there'll still end up being a low point there. We're just kind of changing the grade. There'll be a low point there, but it would flow more or less the same direction it does now.
Right.
Part of it would go towards in the backyard. Part of it would go down around the southerly side of the house, in more or less the same fashion that it does now. So we're modifying the grading, but our intention is to sort of keep the drainage characteristics the same in the area.
All right. And I would imagine it's relatively small, but the four trees that are kind of in the middle of the backyard, that kind of center island-ish, Do you think when those get removed, I know to an extent, those are soaking up some of the water that's coming down. Do you think that will increase pressures on that swale if those 4 trees are removed? Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like I'm getting a little delay here. Can you all hear me?
yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm seeing a delay on my screen. I didn't want to be presumptuous. Yes, while I agree that that those root systems will soak up a little runoff, I don't think that you're going to really see a significant benefit, a significant change. We'll still have the lawn area, which will act to do some of the same things. So, I don't think you'll see a significant change. And again, it's not going to negatively impact the resource area in question because the resource area is being driven by upgrading areas to the site. So it's not like we're going to be, impacting or changing any hydrology to the actual resource area. So it's a little bit of a unique situation. It happens every once in a while where we have wetlands uphill of the site, and you have to file because we're within 100 feet of the resource area for sure, but it's difficult to come up with a scenario where this type of work, where just some tree clearing and grading would create any negative impact to any of the performance standards relative to that resource area, just in virtue of the fact in this site specific case that it's upgradient and it's not being driven. The hydrology of that resource area is not being impacted directly by by the work area. So a little bit of a unique situation.
Yeah.
Brian, can I just set
Please.
a point? One thing I know our focus under the state regs is typically this area here is a resource area, but as you're aware, I'm sure our bylaw, actually, you have the no touch area, which I appreciate has been recognized and preserved as such. But then actually the 75-foot area is also a resource area under our bylaw. So we're talking about performance standards. Yes, they do relate back to this Board of Vegetative Wetland resource area, but under our bylaw, we also need to consider this area also. So that's the adjacent upland resource area. And I believe what's being proposed here is fairly reasonable. We did on site mention permanent memorialization of either a limit of work or something to that nature, so that yes, they can maintain changes going forward if the commission approves it, but maybe that's where we sort of replace any sort of water attenuation by these trees by planting some sort of native shrub or something along the limit of work. So then it's established what they're able to do in the future and what area they're able to maintain as if the commission approves it as lawn or as a grassy native vegetation that they can maintain without having that unintentioned creep that we typically see when there's not a strict delineation or something there that shows a limit of work in perpetuity. Just something to note.
So the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't see a problem with that. If we are an RDA here, but I think that the commission can impose some conditions. And I think that the applicant would be willing to accept, placing a modest amount of shrubs along the work area, which we have, of course, defined now on the plan. So I think, and again, if I'm speaking out of turn, Michael or Jessica, please pipe in, but I see that as a reasonable request by the commission. And I think I also see it as something that's, as Rebecca said, in keeping with sort of standard operating procedure by the commission on other similar sites by way of permanent demarcation. So I think we can get behind that.
Rebecca or anyone for that matter, on the plans I'm looking at, it looks like it's the 25-foot no touch. Is the second concentric ring the 50-foot?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
reference. It's not necessarily a regulatory buffer defined by your bylaw, but we just put it there for reference.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Do other commission members have any other questions currently or thoughts? All right. Rebecca, anybody from the public here to comment on this?
Nope.
Okay. Commission members have any conditions that they would like to see added to this? Added to the RD as it currently stands, I should say, as it's currently proposed. Other than the permanent demarcation of somehow memorializing the extent of work and what can be worked on versus what should be allowed to stay.
No, not for me, Brian.
Okay. All right. And as far as the 8 trees that are being proposed to be removed, any questions or issues with any of those?
No, I had no issues, Brian.
Okay.
Brian, my only question with those is, would the commission be willing to leave them as snags or request that? Because I'm looking and these 2 are actually outside of the limit of work. So I would just want to make sure that there's no stump grinding outside of the limit of work at the very least.
And I think we had mentioned that on site. Is that something the applicants would be applicable to? I can understand the 4 kind of in the center. You're looking to remove to kind of create that yard, but the other 4 trees, would you be willing to leave those as snags or spikes?
You mean just not take the root ball?
Basically, yes. And for the back ones, just maybe leaving them as a 6-foot or an 8-foot dead.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I don't see that. I think that the main issue is protection of the structure. So,
Yeah.
and shade on the house. So I think that, yeah, I mean, if that's what the commission believes is important to this, I think we'd be amenable to that. Yeah, I think that's okay.
Okay. All right. Just for the purposes of adding a condition, and again, anybody who has a good answer to this, what's the best way to describe these trees? If we say you can remove the 4 in the middle of the back lawn, the other 4, at least 2 should be cut as snags, and all 4 the stump should remain.
I think you can reference south of the swale. So the 4 south of the swale.
Beautiful.
Root ball, the 4 north of the swale, we would maintain the snags as you indicated.
Okay.
That would be the language that I would suggest.
Okay. All right, and what I'm just to so the applicants know, and so everybody does before I actually propose it. So what I would thinking of possibly proposing is using that 50-foot line as the area when the project's done to demarc as basically to memorialize as basically the limit of work going forward, and that the area behind that be seeded with a native seed mixture and allowed to naturalize, whereas the area in front of it, again, we'd probably do our standard no herbicides or pesticides on any kind of lawn in the 75-foot buffer. And if at all possible, we'd like to see native plantings within there, but that could be more of the maintained area, and we'll use the 50-foot buffer zone to kind of memorialize where things should not be touched beyond and allowed to naturalize. Well, I guess I'd hear other commission members first. Is that something you would be amenable to? Does that sound reasonable? Just curious, other commission members' thoughts. Is that something you could get behind?
Yes, Brian, I think that's reasonable.
I think it's reasonable.
All right. Rebecca, I should ask, did Emily put in any comments for this? That's the name of our commission member who sadly could not be with us tonight, but she did submit comments from many of the projects.
She did note native plantings in the backyard, if there's any additional landscaping. So right along with, I think, what you just stated, Brian. Then she also expressed wanting to see the grades, but that is on the revised plan.
Okay.
That was all.
Okay. Let's see if I can read my own notes. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 257 Main Street, map 4.E, parcel 48. Do I hear a second for closing?
I second, Brian.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an I myself for closing.
All right, ladies, and gentlemen, if I may,
Go ahead, please.
I'm 4 minutes late for an appointment in Stowe at the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
Now that you've closed the public hearing and you can't take any more input from me anyway, I'm going to sign off. But to just say that I appreciate your consideration of this. I know the applicants are as well, and they look forward to getting the decision. So thank you very much.
That's
Thank you,
excellent.
Greg.
Make sure Stowe knows that we take priority.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you.
Good
Thank
luck,
you.
Greg.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we have a -3 determination for 257 Main Street with the following conditions. That the 50-foot, that after the completion of work, the 50-foot buffer zone is permanently memorialized with either boulders 18 inches or larger in diameter, split rail fence or solid fence. That the proposed tree removals on the south side of the swale can be fully removed, but the 4 trees being proposed removed on the north side of the swale. The stumps must remain for all 4, and 2 of the 4 be kept as snags, or I'm trying to think what the other term for them is. Yeah. That the area within the 50-foot buffer zone be allowed to naturalize or be replanted with a native seed mixture. That areas within the 75-foot buffer zone, there should be no herbicides or pesticides used on any type of lawn or plantings. And then whenever possible, native planting should be used. Think that's everything I had written down. Do I hear a second for that as proposed?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an I myself.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I was gonna say, Rebecca, let me know if you're ready to move on to the next. Or
I
when.
am. My screen is being weird. I apologize.
Yeah, I saw you struggling there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, I know why. I am all set to move on, Brian.
Okay,
So if you would like, I believe Meadow Road is next.
that is correct. So at this point in time, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the open public meeting under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent filed for Meadow Road, lots 7 and 8, map 4.D, parcel 101, proposed shared driveway grading and associated drainage. As I can see via screen, it looks like the applicants have requested a continuation via email. Any commission members have a reason why we should not continue? Any members of the public here tonight to comment on this? All right.
Nope, it is just us and the next applicant.
And so I'm looking at 7:45 on the 19th.
Yes.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for a notice of intent for Meadow Road map and parcel 101 until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 19th at 7:45 PM.
I second that.
All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am, and I myself.
Thank you.
All right. Next up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 304 Still River Road, the extension of fencing along the western parcel line. Rebecca, is the applicant or a representative for the applicant here this evening?
No, actually.
Okay. Would you be able to give us a quick summary, do you think?
I will try my best.
Okay,
I will say Emily did request a site visit, or she suggested that it would be great. So you can see my cursor, correct?
yes.
Okay. So this is Still River Road. We have the Bolton Flats Wildlife Management Area to the northwest of the parcel line here, which incorporates a floodplain and the wetland resource area line here. Again, this is just a guideline because it is off of the town website. The 100-foot buffer and adjacent upland resource area here. This is that blue. The hatching you are seeing is a scenic roadway overlay and a natural heritage endangered species overlay. So they will have to reach out and just ensure that natural heritage does not have any conflicts or any issues with this project. Right now, there is an existing in-ground swimming pool. They're proposing some fencing that will go down beyond it. Again, this is the existing single-family home here. And it abuts in the rear many resource areas.
I know where this is. And I would basically agree with Emily's assessment that I'd actually like to go out on site and see exactly what's being proposed where. But say not having, normally we would continue till our next meeting, but if the applicant's not here, are we able to conditionally continue?
We can. Typically, we don't. On a notice of intent, I would say no. On a request for determination of applicability, I would leave that up to the commission's discretion. Typically, we don't have that practice. But where we're opening it this evening, I haven't heard one way or another from the applicant. I did let them know the process of the Conservation Commission, that at times you do request a site visit. But they didn't relay whether or not any information about a continuation.
Okay. Other commission members have thoughts on this right now?
I think it would be good to get out and see it also, Brian.
Okay. I know it's not normally our custom, Rebecca, but I may continue this one. As you said, it is an RDA, and we still do need to schedule a site, but we have not even been out to look at it, and I'd hate for them to have to refile.
I was
So,
going to say that's another opportunity as well, to close and then reopen, but I don't believe they meant to do that, but I can't speculate. So.
I am going to take the risk this time. especially seeing how they, for whatever reason, they weren't able to make it this evening for the actual opening of this. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we continue the public hearing for request for determination of applicability for 304 Still River Road until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 19th at 8:00 p.m. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an I myself.
Wonderful.
All right, next up. All right. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing for a request for determination of applicability for 243 Berlin Road, map 3.C, parcel 11, proposed garage extension to replace a lean tube structure. Rebecca, are you able to give any updates on this, or is the applicant here tonight, I should say, or anybody representing the applicant?
The applicant is present this evening.
Okay.
This was the site that the commission and myself were out to visit at various times in the morning. And what was observed on site was that it is in very close proximity to wetland resource areas. However, there was an existing structure there that has been there for some time, much like the other structures on site. It does seem like the applicant has maintained the 25-foot no disturb area toward the rear, which is appreciated and expected. I would echo some of the other commission members' comments that she had shared, which was that for the proposed structure extension that will go over, or is proposed to go over, the previously existing structure that was recently removed, that the outside of the foundation should not be regraded, rather leaving that area to naturalize. And then the additional was to, and we had mentioned this on site, was to direct roof runoff away from the wetland resource area and provide some recharge area and infiltration up gradient. So by the time it infiltrates, it's not taking any runoff with it off the property. But I'm interested to hear what other commission members thought about the site visit as well.
I'll share. I think I echo a lot of what Emily had said. I had asked about the runoff, just seeing how that would be. I take her point about allowing to naturalize outside the foundational area. The fact that this garage actually opens towards the street or the front of the property there might actually cut down a little bit on the amount of activity closest to the wetland. Or closest to the resource area, or at least the 25-foot no touch. And seeing how it was, there was basically an existing, not permanent, but semi-permanent garage already existing in that place. I didn't have too many other questions or issues. Other commission members?
Yeah, Brian, I was there too, and I agree with you. I don't have too many other questions or issues with it. I think there was an existing garage there. He's saying he'll stay away 25 feet away from the wetlands. So I agree.
No questions.
Okay. Rebecca, any members of the public here this evening that have questions?
It is just us.
Excellent.
I mean, everybody else is watching the Red Sox.
Yes, Bill.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public meeting for request for determination of applicability for 243 Berlin Road. Do I hear a second for closing?
A second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian.
Aye.
All right. like to make a motion that we have a -3 determination for the request for determination of applicability for 243 Berlin Road with the following conditions. The two conditions that were expertly said earlier in this conversation regarding roof runoff and the naturalization of the outside of foundation area. Do I hear a second for that?
Brian, do you want to add erosion control?
Yeah, and the additional condition that proper erosion controls be in place and approved before the start of work. Do I hear a second for the -3 with those three conditions?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill.
Aye.
All right, Jillian
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm and I myself.
Great, thank you. So Joe, in this case, a negative determination is a good thing in which you are going to be able to move forward with your project. You just have to wait for the issuance of the document. So that will be signed by the commission members. Once it is signed, I will reach out to you to let you know. It will also be mailed to you. And at that time, I will also attach a copy to your existing building permit that you've applied for and be able to sign off at that point, just to give you an update on that. So thank you.
Okay. All right, so the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public, continue the public hearing for request for try this again from the top. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing for a notice of intent filed for Century Mill Road, map 3.D, parcel 75. The discussion regarding proposed construction of 3 single-family homes and the widening and paving of an existing gravel driveway. I can see by my screen that they have requested a continuation, and I know they are waiting to get their arborists in there to try to answer some of the questions we have. So I see no reason why we should not grant the continuation. And that said, I would like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for Century Mill Road, map 3.D, parcel 75, to our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 19th at 8:15 p.m. Do I hear a second? Okay.
I have one question. Will we be able to be on site when the arborists meet?
The arborists will be meeting October 13th at 9 a.m. So if you would like to email me, if you would like to attend as well, that is acceptable. However, if we have a quorum, I will need to post it as a public meeting. So it would be helpful to know ahead of time if everyone is coming or who will be coming.
So one of us could attend.
You all can attend, yes, is the answer. I just need to know ahead of time so that I can post it 48 hours in advance if we are going to have the quorum of commission members present, that's all.
So I'm looking now, I won't be able to make it at 9 on the 13th, so there's at least one down.
Rebecca, I'd like to attend since I was not able to attend
Okay.
the previous site visit, so I can do that.
Sure. Bill, will you also be in attendance?
Yeah, I would like to go.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I will let our arborists know that you will be in attendance as well.
Excellent. Okay. Do I hear a second on my motion to continue?
I second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am, and I myself.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so last up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing to hear a request for a certificate of compliance for 580 Main Street. Rebecca, can you give us a quick update or summary of what we're looking to do here and why we're trying to close this out?
Yes. This is an open and expired request for, excuse me, wow, order of conditions that is DEP file number 0608, originally filed related to an assisted care living facility, which is now a completely different structure. And this project, the applicant had stated that the work never initiated on site, and to build that particular assisted living care facility. And with that, they are simply trying to close out this open order so that they can, which they have filed, but so that the commission can consider a notice of intent relative to operation and maintenance plan that is relevant to an enforcement order that the commission issued this past spring, I believe. And in addition to that, they also need to close it out and have the property prepared to potentially open a new project down the line. So this is getting everything in order. In this case, the work they've stated was never initiated on site. And they will be filing an operation and maintenance plan to come into compliance with the enforcement order once this is closed out.
Does that make sense to commission members?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. In that case, and Rebecca, as far as you know, there's no real conditions or caveats on the certificate. It's okay. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance for 580 Main Street. Do I hear a second for that?
I second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an I myself.
Perfect. Thank you. Do you want me to run through the updates? Actually, do you want to do the minutes first?
Well, I was going to ask, commission members had a chance to look through and review the minutes. All right.
They were
Does
very well documented, Rebecca. That was,
Great.
it was a lot of detail you captured.
And again, I still love your minutes format. It's a great format. I've tried to have people adopt it in other places I work. Bill, any questions, issues with the minutes as they were submitted?
No, I'm fine with them.
All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we vote to approve and accept the minutes for our September 21st, 2021 meeting as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an I myself.
Perfect. Thank you.
And now, if you would please, we would love to hear the updates.
Sure. Our first update is that there will be a new store. The story walk at Fifeshire has been removed for the season. We may be installing another, but a new story walk will be installed at Bower Springs Conservation Area. It is a book from a local author who actually was inspired by the property and the wildlife there. So that should be installed within the next week, actually. So visit the property. Still River Trail, I will be hosting a guided walk through the Taggart Forest Land parcel on Thursday, October 22nd. I will be putting a flyer on the town conservation website. It will be from 9 until 11. It might not take us that full time, but I do like to allow for some wiggle room so that if we have a slower group, we can utilize that time wisely. A reminder about the Bolton Master Plan Steering Committee would like to invite the community members to the inaugural forum of the Bolton Master Plan on Sunday, October 17th from 2 to 4 at Florence Sawyer. It will be held in the cafeteria and basically be moving through some tables and some relatively active stations to really be engaging the community and receiving some great input. Then we have the MVP program. As always, I've left the project we just completed so that individuals can link to it. but our current project has started, which is the Nashua River Communities Resilient Lands Management Project. If you're interested in being part of the core team or part of our forest task group, please contact me, or interested in the project at all. We'd be more than happy to have you. And lastly, we still have our volunteer land steward position open. It is a volunteer position, but it is someone who engages both with the Conservation Commission, the Conservation Trust, and of course, our wonderful Bolton Trails Committee volunteers as well. So anyone interested can contact me.
Excellent.
Questions?
I will add to other commission members, the master plan meeting on October 17th. A member of the steering committee did ask me if to possibly share it with other members of the public, and absolutely to attend as a Boltonite. But they are also keen to have members of the Conservation Commission attend if at all possible. And I will point out to both Bill and Jillian, if you didn't already know this, oftentimes we'll use that master plan in some of our grant funding opportunities, or when we're looking to preserve certain lands over other lands. It's one of the things we go back to, and it's one of the, I shouldn't say defensible, but it's when you're looking for grant funding, or you're looking for opportunities to either protect land, or what land should we protect versus what we shouldn't. A lot of that we will kind of memorialize in this town master plan. So it is quite beneficial if you can attend and you have things you want to say along those lines. That's about all I got. Any other commission members have any other new business?
The Red Sox are up 2-0, Brian.
Oh, hey, look at that. Well,
Are you
I think
looking
that's,
over your shoulder?
well, what's that? Oh, no, yeah, no, I got a plane in the back of the room. Come on, what's wrong with you?
All right, well, we can get you all to your game because we are still recording.
No, that's perfectly fine. You know, they haven't been losing since we've been recording. So I think we might just have to stay on tonight. No, just kidding.
Great.
All right. All of that nonsense said, I would like to make one final motion that we hereby adjourn this evening's meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
I second that.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Hi.
and Rebecca. I myself have a great night, everyone.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.